This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.
Well, hey, everyone. It's Mark Bayer, and you're tuned to another episode of When Science Speaks. This episode is brought to you by Bayer Strategic Consulting in Washington, D.C., which helps scientists and engineers get funding, gain influence, and advance their careers. It is such a great pleasure to have Mike Simonds on the show today. Mike is Chief Operating Officer for Unum Group. Mike began his career at Unum in 1994, working in leadership positions in finance, marketing, and field operations before leaving the company to get his MBA. Since returning to Unum, he's been in leadership roles, including Chief Marketing Officer and President for Unum US. Mike earned his MBA at Harvard Business School and his Bachelor of Science in Economics and Anthropology at Bowdoin College. Mike, it's so great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here. Well, Mike, I really would love for you to tell our listeners a bit about Unum, the background and what your focus is.
Thanks, Mark. Unum's an employee benefits company. And so just think of it when you start a new job, one of the tasks that you have is to go in and sign up for benefits. And other than health insurance or your retirement benefits, pretty much everything else is something that Unum does. So life insurance, dental insurance, disability insurance. That's what we do. We're about 11,000 colleagues strong across the US, UK, Poland, and Ireland. And we cover about 38 million workers and their families across those markets.
Mike, you mentioned the UK, Poland, and Ireland, and I know that Unum has a strong multicultural leadership development program. What can you tell listeners about that program and how it operates?
Sure. Really it just starts with the fact that our people are our brand. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we attract and retain the most talented, but also most diverse group of colleagues that we possibly can. And beyond attracting and retaining, it's like, boy, we really need to be able to fully engage folks while they're here. Because if you think about it, if you've got an environment where every part of the company is reflective of the diversity in the markets that we serve, and you mentioned a number of them, people are going to show up feeling like this is home. And when you have that level of fit and inclusivity, people bring their best thinking. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to challenge established thinking and be creative. And if we're going to be successful with our mission and purpose, we really need to be investing in ensuring that we're creating that kind of environment. And so rotational development programs, like you mentioned, Multicultural, was really created to help us find underrepresented employees across our markets and be very intentional about supporting their development and removing barriers to them achieving success. And as they achieve success, they help us perpetuate that and create, the kind of diverse and inclusive environment that's going to help us be successful.
Yeah, I love that. And, building on that response, I wonder, sort of the leadership qualities that Unum seeks to cultivate in these participants for these programs. What are some of the sort of aspects or the key traits that Unum is either looking for or really wants to teach as part of these rotational programs?
Sure. I think it starts with the ability to create a vision, and that could be a very high level, long term, but also it can be, what can we accomplish as a team over the coming, weeks and months. So you've got to be able to create a compelling picture for that. It's going to be clear and it's going to be motivating. That really is job one when it comes to leadership. So have a vision, be able to communicate effectively. So a good amount of the investment goes into ensuring that people know how to present and discuss ideas in accessible ways. And in our business, there's a lot that's technical. As you can imagine, we do a fair amount of insurance work. And so you've got to be able to translate the technical in an accessible way so that people understand implications and can make good decisions based on that data and that information. So communication ends up being a really important skill set. Inclusivity, we talked a little bit about it, but you have to be able to create an environment that is appreciative and solicitous of differences, different backgrounds, different orientations, different ideas. Frankly, you've got to be able to create that kind of environment. And then ultimately, we need folks that generate results. So at the end of the day, we have a really important charge to protect workers and their families. We've got to be able to do that successfully. People are counting on us. So folks need to be able to lead teams that generate really strong results. So those are some of the competencies that we look for in terms of our leaders.
Yeah, so great. And, you touched on communication, Mike, and we had a chance to talk offline about the importance of storytelling and presenting data. As you said, there's a lot of technical information out there, and that data isn't just going to speak for itself. So what are some of your perspectives on why storytelling is important, or maybe just elements that you have found during your career that are important to include in a powerful story?
Sure, and I completely agree. And as you mentioned, we talked about it a bit offline, and I think there's almost three parts, right? So the first is you want to have as strong a network for great conversations as you possibly can, because I find those conversations are what generate your hypotheses. Mm-hmm. And then you take those hypotheses in and then apply the analytic skill set and sort out, what's truth and what isn't. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that's where we stop. And it really is important that we get to the third link in that chain, which is taking what you've learned through that good hypothesis generation and analysis, and be able to effectively tell a story. Because stories, I find, are the best way to not only illustrate and build understanding around a point that maybe you've proven using data, but is what compels people to take action. Mm-hmm. Our heads love the idea of being able to use data to sort, but ultimately, what's going to motivate us and what wins you the hearts of folks is the story, and how that particular truth plays out at a human level. We are social animals at the end of the day. Right. And so we want to know how it relates to us and people that we care about and can relate to. So I think every good story has to have that element of connectivity back to something that is familiar and that we can sort of see through the lens of ourselves and our friends and family.
I just love it. Yeah. That's just so relatable, relevant, accessible, emotional, the heart, like you said. It's not easy, particularly when you could be knee deep in data, which is actually where I'm going a little bit with this next question regarding data science and data scientists and their role at Unum, current employees, and maybe, thinking about future, needs and listeners who might be interested in data science.
Yeah, it's a great question. And just in reflecting just on the last comment you made, Mark, mm-hmm. You know better than most that challenge, and just being such an expert at storytelling and this work that you do to help folks with a technical background really develop that skill set. You've seen that front and center, and we see that every day. So yeah, it is a big investment from a talent development point of view for mm-hmm. us. And it's everything from developing talent by formal training programs. Mentorship is a very big deal here. That's another way of developing it. One that I came to probably later than I should have in reflection, but our work with the communities that we live and work ends up being a really effective way to develop communication skills. A lot of the nonprofit world is slanted towards those that are going to be immensely motivated by the story. And I do think about our business here in employee benefits and insurance more generally as one of the original big data and analytics industries. Really, it's what's the formation of the whole industry and its history when you think about the actuarial science and using data to understand and predict and adequately underwrite risk. It's kind of what we do. So We have always traditionally used data and data scientists and have invested in understanding how to price, how to build product, how to underwrite effectively. And what I'd say is over the last 10 years or so, we've really exported that proficiency out to pretty much every other part of our business. So from a customer point of view, it's into how we reach out into our markets and find potential employers where what we do would be a good fit to drive effectiveness and efficiency into our marketing and sales processes. A lot of our benefits, the employer offers and the employee makes a choice. So they're offered on a voluntary basis. So it's really using data and analytics to help individual employees make good decisions based on other folks that are like them in terms of their family situation, income, the risks that they're looking to cover, all the way through just how we run the company. So we take in premium, we hold it and pay it out in claims, and while we're holding it, we're investing it. So we're thinking hard about where do we put an investment portfolio of about $43 billion out to work every single day. And data science is a big part of making sure that we're allocating efficiently, taking good care of policyholder money and generating good, safe, but fair returns on those dollars. So there's all kinds of different places that data science comes to play in the world of employee benefits.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you pulling that out and really unpacking that, because it's certainly not obvious to most people, and they probably wouldn't have thought about the other applications that Unum is finding and putting to work for data science beyond just the strict insurance part. So that was really, really cool how, somebody who's interested in data science, could find a place if there were a good fit at Unum and do things that are really maybe not insurance specific, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I always say that, if pretty much anything that you're interested in, there's a home here. So we mentioned a few of them, but I'll tell you, we take care of a lot of people across our markets when they get sick or hurt. And, using data helps us figure out how to take our clinical staff. So everything from physical health to mental health that might be impairing someone's ability to work. We've got great clinical staff here, but we need to know where to send them. Where are they going to be able to help people the best recover and return to active work? And data science is a big part of that. So it's hard to find places that we don't need that kind of thing.
Right. Really, really interesting. And I want to kind of follow that a little bit as far as the workplace. And, we're in this historic situation right now because of the pandemic. And I would love for you to share your thoughts on the future of work, how it's evolving, transforming, as a result of this, the responses to COVID and what Unum has done and sort of how you see the future, looking at it from a workplace perspective.
Sure. And it's a great question. It's a timely one. It's for us, I think for many, many organizations, we have just come up on a 1-year anniversary from when the world changed with the pandemic. So for us, it was a little over a year ago that all 11,000 employees over the course of about 48 hours went from predominantly working in office to exclusively working remotely and from home. And to your question, it's really challenging to pull out the crystal ball given how quickly things are moving. And I think we need to settle. But I tell you what I would bet on at this point, and I would say number one is working 5 days in the office as the standard rule is very unlikely to resurface as it was before. So I think that means more flexibility for folks and an opportunity to have a bigger disconnect between where you live physically and where your employer might be situs. And so we're talking a lot about people that have deep expertise and data science in particular, but across a wide spectrum, you've got a lot of demand for folks. And all of a sudden, we're here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Portland, Maine, and Dorking, England. And all of a sudden, the talent pools that open up to us because we realize we can partner effectively and bring colleagues in to our culture and what we get done remotely. It really does create a much wider pool for us to pull from, and also a distinct set of challenges to adapt to kind of creating a strong culture and sense of team when maybe everyone doesn't live, in proximity.
Right, right. So interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. And you've been a leader for so long in your industry, and you look across the landscape at all these different aspects of it. I'm wondering, as we wrap up, what kind of career advice, maybe a point or two, that you might have for listeners who are, in the beginning stages of their own career?
Sure. And I'm learning every day, so I wouldn't market cornered on good advice, but a few things that I've experienced. And the first is there's plenty of limits that people put on you. Don't be one of those folks. So think and dream big and take risk. That's a big one. And a lot of times risk means putting yourself in situations that feel uncomfortable. And I can imagine, Mark, with what you do every day, you're helping folks that have a very technical background learn how to better communicate and have influence. And sometimes, you think about moving from, for instance, the scientific field into commerce or some such, and it feels uncomfortable, but it's those kinds of risks that you take and kind of belief and bet that you make on yourself that lead, I think, to the most amazing development and opportunities. So don't put limits on yourself is number one. And two, I always say professionally, there's all kinds of criteria when you think about, what your next role might be. And every individual has got to figure out how to prioritize things like, location and what the role actually is, or compensation, or whatever it might be. I always say one of the things on that list needs to be, who are the leaders you'll be working with on a regular basis? And wherever you have that on your list of priorities, I would just encourage folks to bump it up one or two slots. Because I find, particularly in the early and mid, but certainly even today for me, my best learning, my best opportunity, and where I have felt most fulfilled has been when I've been connected with leaders that share my values, that can teach and are interested in teaching, and it's made all the difference for me.
Just great, Mike. And you started out your answer by talking about your continued learnings every day, and so that's kind of curiosity that's certainly implicit in what you said. I find to be such a great value all the way through, and it's really wonderful for you to underline that for people who are early on in their careers to be curious and to be uncomfortable sometimes, because it's when some of your best opportunities appear. And I think we're all going through some discomfort right now professionally. I can imagine for many listeners who are on a track or on a pathway that may be shifting or disappearing, or there may be different routes. Your responses have really helped them try to figure out how to navigate this turbulence.
Yeah, it's really well said, Mark. It is about staying open. I think it was Walt Whitman that said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I think that's a pretty good mantra.
And those will be the last words of our episode. Mike, thank you so much for everything that you do every day, taking time out of your really busy schedule to talk and share these insights. So thank you, Mike, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure.
And listeners, thank you so much for being along on this episode of When Science Speaks. And I hope you'll be back next time for the next episode of When Science Speaks.
This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.